All right, good morning, everybody. I'd like to go ahead and call this meeting to order. This will be a work session since we do not have a quorum of the committee. But we are here for the Assembly Legislative Committee work session, such as it is today. We're noticed from 11:50 a.m. or 10:50 a.m. to 11:50 a.m. I'll start with member introductions. At this moment is just me in the room, Zach Johnson, and then on the phone we have member Brawley.
Hi, I'm here.
Okay, thank you. I believe Nolan Cloud will be joining us here in a little bit. He had a conflicting appointment earlier, but said he would be on his way. However, we do have our lobbyist, Ms. Chamberlain, on the phone. So if you'd like to go ahead and present your report when you're ready.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it and welcome. It's nice to talk to you both. Anna, it's good to see you, talk to you again. So I think it's going to be a real difficult session. They're in deficit spend, although they are, but they're not. So where we are is basically this. They've got $6.2 billion available for appropriation. The governor's budget comes out and puts them having a draw of $1.5 billion from the Constitutional Budget Reserve. That is our only savings account left. We have $3 billion left in it, and he's taking $1.5 billion of it to pay a full dividend of $3,650 per Alaskan. So as with other years, we're in a little bit different situation. All of our fiscal analysts have told us and our consultants, we need to keep $3 billion in emergency set-aside money. And that is for fires, for floods, for crisis. And also a lot of the federal programs require us to fund to keep it going, and then we get reimbursed from the feds. So $3 billion is what everybody recommends we have, just to be sure. So we've got to that point and we have no other savings. How does this work for this year? Well, basically, if they bring the dividend down, which they've done in numerous years, to status quo budget virtually with some slight increases for increased inflation and payroll costs and union contracts, but basically it's a status quo budget. If they bring the dividend down to around $800, they can balance the budget. When I say bring the dividend down, that's also got to include a supplemental for 26. So around $800. I talked to Speaker Edgman yesterday. He said around 800. Some people are saying 1,000 or 1,200. But at the end of the day, when we get there, it's going to have some additional spending in there. I know DOT's going to have to come in for more money. And so I'm saying a dividend around 800 to 900 and they'll balance. Here's the problem with that. They will have to pass taxes either this year or next year, but they really should pass them this year because they take 2 years to get set up and get regulations and that set up, because that's their only savings. If they don't generate new revenue with inflation next year, they will have to, either the dividend has to virtually go away or they have to create new revenues. You saw the governor put out his sales tax, 2%, not in summer tourist season, 4%, and then he brought down the corporate income tax. The corporate income tax reduction is a non-starter. The 2 to 4%, some people like it. The issue with that is the rural legislators would rather have an income tax. They don't want a sales tax because it increases cost to their constituents. And our finance committees is controlled by rural legislators. So it'll be an interesting debate. My guess, and I don't know it because I'm just listening, the legislature wants to increase the tax on oil, the per barrel tax, take away some of the credit. They also want to require oil S Corps, and right now it's just Hilcorp, to pay their share of the corporate oil tax, and that would raise about $120 million. The oil tax would raise about $500 million. So, you know, it's going to be a fight. My guess is that's the low-hanging fruit, and that's what they'll go after. But let me tell you that the oil companies and all of the consultants in the industry and the auxiliary to oil, all the companies were here this week lobbying hard against it. The governor has finally said that he would consider some sort of restructuring to the oil tax, because I just looked at the budget numbers. We lost $500 million in revenue from 2 years ago to this year's projected because of Willow. And while that attracts industry, and it's very attractive because it does attract industry, it also has a cost to the state general fund. So that's a fight they'll have to figure out. The second thing is the gas line. That's coming along well. It's getting a lot of hearings. They are looking for a payment in lieu of taxes or some sort of concessions from the state. A lot of hearings on that to see if it happens. NSTAR and all the companies say that unless we get some sort of reduction for, some are saying the life of the project, some are saying for 10 to 15 years, rates in Anchorage will go up dramatically till it starts to export. So I talked to John Sims yesterday. The wording, not agreement, the consensus is to start with for Anchorage, it can't be any higher than to constituents than the cost of imports. And then as they start to build out phase 2 and phase 3, which is the export facility, the cost for Anchorage will go down to around $6 an MCF or $7, which is significantly different than 14 to 15. So in 5 or 6 years, once they get it all going, the company says it'll be significantly different, but we have to get through that 4 or 5 years. So they're the two big issues, the budget and the gas line. Everything else is just noise right now, although it's important, it's just noise. I can tell you that POSCO, the Korean investment firm, Korean that is providing most of the pipe, is touring the port this morning. They came over and met with the governor yesterday, had extensive meetings. They want to invest in Alaska, and they're looking today at the port and the railroad, those two entities. So I know the whole team's down there with the port today, giving them a briefing on that. I can answer any specific questions, but that's kind of what's taken out all the sort of noise in the capital. I will tell you one thing. I did talk to FIA, and we met several times. And one of the priorities for the Muni is to get a interoperability where all the behavioral health patients, because they're now not even in our state records, they're in another thing, areas. So we're trying to figure out, long story short, behavioral health, the state's health information exchange, and the Muni and the crisis. So all have one interoperability. So, and that all the hospitals and that currently belong to. So when a patient is picked up in your crisis by your crisis teams or is identified at the hospital or anywhere, you'll know that patient's history. You'll know what medications they're on. Your team will know if they've been in and out of hospital, if their behavioral health, what they are. It'll be a transition where we have interoperability that sees all those records. I've been told that that will be huge for the Muni if we get that. And I'm meeting with the commissioner next week. I think that's one of the first projects that will be funded.
Okay, thanks for that update. Yeah, I would anticipate a few questions. I also want to note for the record, we've been joined by member Baldwin Day in the room at 10:54. And then also member Silvers has joined us on the phone at 11 a.m. So with that, I think we can say that this is in fact a committee meeting since we have a quorum. Yay. So first in the queue, I have a question from member Brawley. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Good to be back. First, I will also just make a quick disclosure that I, until earlier this month, until Friday, January 9th, I was employed by a legislator, so Representative Gray, and I left employment again after the 9th, and that's why I've not been participating in this committee, but now I have, and I've spoken with the ethics board about kind of re-engaging after that. Anyway, just a disclosure, since this is my first one that I've been to for a long time. My actual questions for Wendy. So obviously the fiscal plan just got published, and of course we're still figuring all of that out. Of course, Anchorage is going to be looking very closely at the sales tax. So my two questions are, and this probably requires some follow-up. On the sales tax, I heard something about the state basically controlling where the revenue goes, even though some would go to local governments. And then I'm wondering if there's any carve out. I'd heard in the past there would be a carve out for places that already have a sales tax, or they would be grandfathered in basically. So that's one question. And then the other more general question is, big picture, how serious do we think any of those proposals are? And do we have any indication of which ones the governor is going to be? I imagine it's a negotiation, so some he probably is going to be more in favor of than others, or more, this is a must-have versus a nice-to-have. So just curious your thoughts on that. That's my question.
Thanks, Anna. On the sales tax, what the proposal is, the governor has no exemption in his right now. So everything's subject to the tax. So to stop it, the reason they decided they'd collect it all was to stop it being when you go somewhere and buy something, this is exempt under state, but this isn't exempt because this is municipal tax. So they're going to collect it all under the governor's proposal and then distribute back to the communities their share. So they will be collecting it all, which seems like, Anna, to me, a huge lift for them to take on, but that's what his proposal says. It clears up them not exempting anything, the governor. As you probably know, there's going to be some carve-outs. But right now he started off with none. So let's say 4% or 4 mils or 4. And then if Juneau has a 5%, they'll collect 4 and 5 and then rebate back what the 5 is based on the exemptions that Juneau has. It's a cumbersome way to do it. To be honest, Anna, I don't think with all of these new legislators and in an election year, a sales tax is doable this year. I just don't see it. I see they spent a lot of time last year on the S Corp and they've spent time on the oil tax. If anything goes, I see those two going. However, and I say however, the governor has said he will not just take a sole tax on industry. He wants to see a broad-based tax package come. So the question comes down to, if they do go ahead and change the per barrel credit or tax the S Corp, take that exemption away, so the S Corp's a tax. If they're raising $500-600 million, does he veto that bill if it's only oil? I don't know, Anna. I mean, that's a negotiation. It's going to be tough for them to pass the sales tax. And here's the thing for Anchorage, the difficult part is we get rebated nothing. We don't have one. So.
Yeah, thanks. And I know it's uncertain. I partly just want to put those concerns on the record is, what is actually the priority out of that list, but heard about the sales tax. Thank you.
All right, next thing you have member Baldwin Day.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I have a follow-up question. I just want to be sure I'm understanding this very clearly. So under the governor's proposed sales tax, all existing exemptions will be stripped, but what
on the state's portion only. On the state's portion only.
State's portion only.
Yes.
So
yes.
The mechanics of this are that the state, I'm not quite clear on how the collection happens or would happen. So the state would collect, for example, with a local 4% tax and a state well, let's make them different for sake of argument. So with a 4% state sales tax and a 5% local sales tax, the state would collect the entire 9 and then rebate back the local tax?
They will under the government's proposal. Yes, and rebate back the local.
So
otherwise,
how do
the way that it's
still
done
exist on that's wild. Sorry, go ahead.
That is wild. But if it was to be collected at a store, like let's take a store that does with some exemptions, Fred Meyer's, right? Let's use them. And I use them as an example. I don't know that it'll happen to them. They've got to calculate on a sale the state tax, no exemption, and then the muni tax, these exemptions. So what did you buy? You bought that, but that under the state tax. So we'll give you no exemptions there, but then on that, we'll give you an exemption. Can I be honest? It's a nightmare. We're all trying to figure it out down here. Like, how does it work? How is this going to work? Somebody's going to have to differentiate between the no exemptions and the exemptions. I mean, it's not clearly defined right now. To be honest, the first hearing is going to be very, very interesting with Department of Revenue. Like, how are you going to manage this?
Well, thank you for, I didn't want to believe that that's what you said, but there we are. And I agree. That's a nightmare. Thank you for squaring that.
Yes. And I don't think it would have gone if the governor would have come out and said, I'm going to get rid of all your taxes, and because communities are wed to those taxes. But maybe that's their plan in the end. To be honest with you, none of us down here really know. We've played the scenarios out. And so if you play the scenario out that Juneau collects 5 and the state collects 4, right? Then the state would collect the 9. But then Juneau's not going to be happy if all the exemptions that people are used to be getting go away, because they've given them for their tax collection, Juneau. It's just a mess. I'm sorry, but I wish I had the answer.
Okay. I have myself in the queue here, and then slightly different question. Want to ask a little bit more about this behavioral health piece. It sounded like, if I'm following correctly, this would require some funding, so something in the budget, but would there also be a change to statute to accommodate this new interoperability? Are there two pieces moving here?
No, statutes, you're going to see a statute bill introduced for the health information exchange, but it's not going to change that. What happens is it's the system they're reporting into. So there's the health information exchange, which is run by Healthy Connect, and it's the state's health information exchange. So right now, most of the hospitals belong to that. And so if you get, for instance, if you get treated in Fairbanks Hospital, right, or Fairbanks Emergency Room, but you come down to Juneau and you have an episode or a problem again, Fairbanks can pull up Juneau, Fairbanks can pull up Anchorage, we can see your patient record portal, goes through a safe and secure portal. So community health centers, anybody's record is available if you belong and you've signed in, you have a sign in, right? The Muni has not been using that. And to add to that, behavioral health does not report into that system currently. They belong to another system. And so part of this is been to get Healthy Connect, the state one on interoperability, to have the programs and the layers that whether you're behavioral health provider or you're the Muni, you sign in to the same portal as the hospital. Everybody across all platforms belongs to the same exchange, and it'll be the health information exchange.
Okay, thank you. That helps.
It's a game changer for Anchorage, because right now I understand from Thea, your mobile crisis units are picking up people, but they can't see that they have no history on that patient record. Obviously, there's a ton of confidentiality and a ton of HIPAA, but the exchange have met all of those requirements. They're operating very, very well, and you're going to see them get a lot of money in this health transformation project. You're going to see that exchange get a lot of money to beef up its ability of interoperability.
I'm sorry, and what is the funding source for that investment in this behavioral health portal? Or sorry, well, just a...
It's called the Health Transformation, Rural Health Transformation Fund, and the federal government announced in the big, beautiful bill, each state will get $250 million a year over 5 years. We have already been awarded more than our 250. Alaska got the second highest award for the first year, and we got, I think it was 287 or 278 million to spend the first year, and each year we'll get our 250 or more. So that's where the money's coming from. It's the largest appropriation into healthcare in the history of Alaska.
Got it. Thank you. Looking around the room, does anyone else have any additional questions for our lobbyist, Ms. Chamberlain? Not seeing any. Okay, thank you for all that, Wendy. I'd like to turn to Mr. Cloutta here. If you have an update you'd like to give to the body.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Nolan Cloutta with the Mayor's Office. Give you guys a couple of updates on what we have going on in the state legislative front with regard to our legislative program. We put out this week a call to departments on their CAPSIS projects for state capital grants. We are taking the approach this year. I think in past years, there's been a long list of projects that have been identified, and a lot of them are ones that have been submitted for multiple years. We've taken the approach this year of really keeping that list small and focused, and that's in line with a lot of the advice that we've had from folks like Ms. Chamberlain and from the legislators that we talked to. That we're not there's a very good likelihood of not seeing any capital budget at all, but that our best chances are very small focus asks, and so we're focused on that. So we are asking departments to keep to really to focus on whatever CAPSIS items that are in our legislative program, and with rare exceptions, anything else. So it's a much smaller list than what we've had in past years. The mayor and the chief of staff will be heading to Juneau on February 11th and 12th for meetings with legislators, and they'll also be bringing the port director Terry Umatum with them. There will be a dinner with the Anchorage delegation on February 11th. So this will be, talking about our legislative program, bringing Mr. Umatum to talk port issues, as our top task overall in our program. And so that'll play nicely, because I think that we've got 3 assembly members who are going to the Alaska Municipal League conference, which is, I believe, the following week. So that'll work well between those 2 visits. We can have some kind of complementing efforts. We did have a couple of other things that I could bring the group up to speed on in December and January. We put out a call for legislators to do ride-alongs with APD and with the mobile crisis team, and we had several legislators that responded and took us up on that offer. So we had in December and a couple that went into January, 5 legislators who did mobile crisis team ride-alongs, which was really, really productive. They got good reviews, learned a lot about the process they were working on, and then one with APD. And there were a couple of others that were interested in APD but couldn't make the scheduling quite work. So we were really happy to help legislators see kind of what municipality is doing in action with regard to public safety and public health. Another update too is on January 7th, we had put together kind of a mini legislative tour of the Real-Time Crime Center at APD. And so Chief Case and some of the others at APD, gave them a briefing on the Real-Time Crime Center, how it works, what it does, what its sort of purpose is. Gave a little bit of a demonstration of kind of what some of the capabilities are, especially with the camera feeds, and that seemed to go over really well. We had two legislators that came in person, and then we had about 6 others that were staff that attended. So that follows on another item that's in our legislative program for capital requests for the Real-Time Crime Center. Those are the big things. Along with the CAPSIS call, I should mention, I know that we're mainly concerned with state legislative issues here, but we are also working really actively on the CDS request. That's the community directed spending, the earmark requests through Senator Murkowski's office. So kind of in tandem with the CAPSIS calls, seeking our projects from our departments about CDS requests this year. So that will be another effort that we'll look forward to keeping the Assembly apprised of as well. And happy to take any questions.
Thank you for, yes, Ms. Brawley.
Yeah, thank you. And sorry I'm not there in person. I guess my general question is, well, and then I'll say also, I know a few of us are going down for the AML conference. So for my part, I'm not doing a separate trip, or wouldn't be coordinating with the mayor's trip, but I'm glad you guys are going down. My question is just in general, as we're thinking about, I guess I always frame it as offense and defense, right? So offense being things that we want, and defense that we're, watching. We know that property tax discussions are going to continue to bubble up. We're already seeing that, obviously, or just taxation in general. So I'm just curious if you have initial thoughts on kind of messaging or approach that you guys are going to take on that front, and or are there ways that us members who are going to be going down later can be helpful? And of course, we can talk offline as well, but just wanted to, again, kind of put on the record that we know property tax is going to be a discussion, and I don't have a lot of confidence that what comes out of there might benefit us if we don't get active on it. So that's my question.
Yes, through the chair to Member Brawley. We always have to be nimble in playing defense. I think as you and I talked a lot about that. I think in last session too. So responsive to whatever comes up. There are some rumblings on property tax changes. Of course, the state is very prescriptive with local governments about property tax, and we always want to make sure that they're not making changes that end up being harmful to local governments, right? So we are tracking the conversation with AML that AML is having on property taxes, and I'm aware of the pre-filed bill that would limit assessment increases annually and some of those kinds of things. So we're watching those very closely. So yeah, we do keep on top of those kinds of defensive actions, and appreciate insights from you and other members on that as well for the things that you're watching out for.
Thanks.
Okay, thanks. And then just while we're kind of on the topic of the scheduling of the mayor's team going down to Juneau as well as AML, at one point we had contemplated trying to put together a separate visit to Juneau with members of the body to go specifically try and meet with the legislators about the program. But I think just kind of looking at the timing of everything and then just sort of what's achievable with logistics, I think AML is probably going to be the best opportunity for members to go out and down and have some of those meetings. And I believe members Baldwin Day and Brawley and Rivera are going. I'm also looking at trying to get down myself. We have branch staff that can help us with scheduling meeting with legislators, but just want to put it out to Anna and Aaron, since you're here in the room, when you're down there in AML, I don't know the specific dates that you intend to be in. And then also it tends to be a very busy week depending on how much you want to focus on doing work at the Capitol versus AML related activities. But I think not necessarily right here in this room, but it'd be helpful to know kind of how do the members who are going to be down there want to divide their time, and what is their interest in meeting with legislators. And I think we can work with branch staff to start getting some meetings scheduled, and just kind of ask the folks who are going to think about sort of what their how they want to balance their time. So just kind of putting that out there for people to think about. And I think we can circle up offline on that. And then as we get a little closer and we have some feedback, perhaps from how the mayor's visit went, to think about what kind of messaging is likely to resonate and what sort of follow-up is most appropriate.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we will communicate with those of you that are going down or planning trips, what any insights we had, and as well as to this committee, any takeaways that we had for that. So yeah, it's good to coordinate, I think, closely. Anytime, members might be going down to Juneau, we can, if we strategize a little bit in advance, we can kind of think about any legislators that we might want to target or any issues we want to target. We'd be, that would be, I think, a productive thing for all of us to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'll just note, of course, that there are members who are going down for AML, and there's nothing that precludes a member of this body from going down to Juneau, based on their interest and availability to go meet with the legislator. So not trying to just make it clear there's no gatekeeping there, so to speak. Kind of on that subject, since we have Ms. Ross from legislative branch staff, anything I'm leaving out that you think would be useful as we kind of get into the planning phase? Okay. Well, I think with that, we've moved through the agenda for this meeting. Is there anything else covered under the agenda that members feel we haven't discussed or addressed here? All right, not seeing any hands go up in the room or online. So with that, I think we go ahead.
Mr. Chair, this is,
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't get to text in time. I was just wondering briefly if there's any bills that we have been watching, because I know they're all numbered bills. If there's anything we're watching that has a hearing coming up, or that we should just be aware of that might be moving fast. That would be mostly a question for Wendy if she's still here, or Nola.
Yes, I'm still here online, and I watch them all the time. So as you know, today's the day the calendar comes out tonight for next week. So, you know, we've been overview hearings. There's been nothing. I think today we were hearing naming the large giant cabbage, the Alaska vegetable. So Anna, we're just doing easy things this week, but the calendar will come out tonight. And I think we'll start and see bigger legislative bills hit the calendar next week. So I will keep you updated. For the members, I will also do a report for you on the sales tax. I know that's very important to you. I will do a report for you on the sales tax and the budget. I have something sort of put together, and I will get it to you by early next week. This weekend, I'll finish it up and send it to you so you understand exactly what the bills do, the governor's bill, and what he's looking at as a fiscal plan. And then we can move it around depending on what legislators say.
Okay, great, thanks.
And then I think Ms. Ross wanted to weigh in.
I am tracking the election bills, and so there, I think it's SB 64.
64 is up.
Yeah, on Friday. Tomorrow is having its first
Yes.
hearing in the House. Yeah, because it passed the Senate. So I'm gonna listen in and track that one and any other election bills that move.
That would be really good for me, to be honest. That would be great for me. There's a lot of areas I know real well, and I'm sorry, local elections and elections is not one of them. My partner Heather works on them nonstop though, so she's a real advocate on that, and she also does municipal leagues. She knows them very well. So anything you could let us know, I can then talk to Heather and AML and all that about it. But that's great. Thanks for that.
Okay, that sounds good. Yeah, we've been working with Senator Wielechowski and Senator Kawasaki's office, who are taking the lead on that. And I'm not quite the election expert, although I've learned a lot in the last couple of years. And so I'm just listening in and then letting our elections team know what's going on so they can weigh in with expertise. And I'll be sure to let you.
And if there's anything
too.
immediately that you see problematic, please text me anytime. And because as you know, I'm next door and I'll race over and talk to Bill and that. But just
Wonderful.
text me
That sounds
anytime
good.
so we can get it fixed.
Okay, that sounds great.
All right, thanks for that. Going to take one more look around the room and on the phone to see if members have anything else. Not seeing anything. All right. Well, thank you everyone for showing up and participating today. With that, we will go ahead and adjourn. Thank you.